This is going to be a difficult video to film because I've got so much to say. And very little of it matters to anyone but me. This is going to be a different one. This is a different type of video from me because I'm not showing you something new. I'm not showing you something that you can go and buy. I'm showing you something that is incredibly rare. Not because you can't find it anywhere. I'm sure you can find them on your local Craigslist or Reverb or wherever. But you can't find this one because the contents of this case are special. There's only one of these. There's only one guitar that is my very first guitar. And that's exactly what's inside this case. My very first guitar. It's come home. I lent it to my sister probably a decade ago or so. She had interest in trying to learn. I was like, well, here you go, try this. And I think it ended up just becoming a decoration in her room, which is totally fine. Totally an acceptable way to use a guitar as a decoration. They make excellent decorations. But yeah, it's back. And in this video, I'm gonna bring it back to playing condition, but I'm also gonna, walk down memory lane with this thing. And, I'm looking forward to reading all the stories that you guys write in the comment section about your first guitars. I want to know what you started on because I'm about to show you what I started on. And I'm about to tell you about my journey with guitar because this is the first step. This was the first step in what has become a major part of my life. So anyways, let's crack it open. I don't know why I'm even undoing the latches. The hinges gave out decades ago. There's really no reason to even latch this case anymore. But here it is. This guitar represents so much to me. Yes, it's you haven't even seen it all the way yet. I am still just going to wax poetic a little bit here. This guitar not only represents the first guitar that I played, the first guitar that I learned to play on, the first guitar that I learned to love guitar on, but it's also the first guitar that I learned to repair guitars on, that I started exploring modifying guitars. Just so much of my guitar journey, everything that led to where I am now, started with this instrument. And in so many ways, it's completely unremarkable. An extremely common, student level guitar from the time when it was manufactured. So anyways, here it is. My very first guitar, a Hohner acoustic. What is the model number? It is a HG03, serial number 69. Nice. 0899. Let's get the case all the way out of here. That freaking case, man. I have just as many memories holding that case together as I do playing this guitar. So let's talk about my full history with this guitar. When did it come into my life? Well, this guitar is essentially my birthright. This has been in my family since before I was born. My mom bought this guitar when she was in college because she needed to take an elective and thought, hey, let's try guitar. Let's do guitar as an elective. So she went and bought this and bought some Mel Bay books and then went and took a single semester college class and then put it in the closet and then never played it again. So when I was born, years later, it was waiting for me. And I'd pull it out just to mess around with it. The way kids do, lay it out somewhere and you just kind of bang around on it, mess with the tuners when you probably shouldn't, all of that. And that's how I interacted with this guitar until I was probably 13. I bet I was 13. And what happened was I had a friend that was learning to play guitar and I watched him play Smells Like Teen Spirit. And in that moment, it clicked. I'd seen people my whole life play guitar, and they're all putting down complicated chord shapes and moving around so quick that it seemed like magic, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was like, oh, that doesn't seem like something that I could do, so I'm not going to try. But watching my friend, my same age, play a movable power chord in just 4 spots, it clicked. I realized, oh, I can do that. That actually looks easy. I think I could pick that up quick. And I was right. I picked it up pretty dang quick. Not just because it was easy. Guitar is never really easy to start out on. Your fingers hurt like crazy. It was the time in guitar history where tuning was difficult. The electric tuners just barely existed. I got my first quick tune like a year after starting the guitar. I was trying to tune by ear using a little plastic pitch pipe. And I had friends that would come by and help me get it a little bit closer and things like that. Thanks to all the people in my life, by the way, who were there while I was learning. That's so important, is to have people around that are encouraging and, can be there to help you work through problems, So, yeah, I fell in love with it. My fingers were aching and on the edge of bleeding every single day as I just couldn't stop playing with it. I just had to keep exploring the guitar and how to play it. And I started diving into all the old Mel Bay books that were in the case that my mom had bought when she was in college, learning all the normal chord shapes and starting to pick up, old folk songs and stuff like that were in the book. And, trying to pick up songs that I was listening to on the radio, Nirvana, Green Day, all of that sorts of stuff. Diving into surf guitar. I started playing surf guitar on this. I had I borrowed a book from a friend, a tab book that was like, it was like 28 instrumental classics or something like that. And I happened upon Miserlou. I had never heard it before in my life. Pulp Fiction wasn't out yet. And I looked at the tab and I was just like, oh, there's a lot of zeros and a lot of ones and then a lot of fours and it's all in the same string. This looks like a fun thing to try playing. And so I learned to play Miserlou on this guitar before ever having heard it. And then when Pulp Fiction came out, I was like, oh, I think that's the song I've been playing. I was hearing it in commercials. Oh, man. So, yeah, I had my whole journey learning to play guitar on this. And then I started to make repairs because things started breaking. This guitar has what would be very unique now, but was a fairly common piece of technology back then. It has an adjustable saddle as the bridge. It has screws on the ends that adjust it up and down. So I started messing with that and realizing, oh, I can make the strings go up and down relative to the fretboard. And I had no idea what that was for. I just knew that I could do it. And I was playing around with friends' guitars and noticed that a lot of them have the strings really far off of the fretboard. And I thought that must be the correct way to do things. So I was experimenting with raising the strings and then lowering them and trying to figure out what was and what wasn't the correct way to do stuff. And over the years, with all my experimentation, the saddle piece broke. Also, it was 20 years old at that point, or close to it, and the saddle just started to crack and break. And so I was going to the local music shop and buying replacement saddles, and none of them fit quite right because this is a unique piece of hardware here. So I was sanding down the saddle in the garage, trying to get it to fit, trying to trim it to make sense. Looking at it right now, the last time I did that, it must have been like 1999 or something. Last time I replaced the saddle. So it's due, and it's definitely not done correctly. The saddle is way too tall and it's got a dangerous tilt on it. So who knows, this thing could crack and fall apart as I'm changing strings on this guitar today. But yeah, that introduced me into the world of making repairs. The original tuners on this guitar failed. One of them like crumbled in my hand. So I went back to the music shop and I bought a set of ping tuners. And I gave up apparently on screwing them in because only 2 have screws holding them straight into the guitar. I just cranked down the nuts here on the remaining 4. I gave up because those screws were hard to get in. One of them looked stripped. So yeah, that definitely seems like me. That's totally a Ryan move to just be like, well, they tuned the string. That's close enough. Oh man. I don't remember if I ever adjusted the truss rod on this guitar. It doesn't look like it needs it. The neck is laser straight. The frets are well worn. Man, I put in just so much time playing this guitar. You might have noticed that it's full of holes. Yes, it is. You've seen me drill things, right? I drilled this guitar. I was in, once again, Nirvana comes into the story. My family finally got MTV at some point in my late teens, and they were still playing all the unplugged Nirvana stuff then. And I was like, hey, he's got a pickup in the neck of that acoustic guitar. I want to do that. And so I cut out a piece of plywood and I screwed it over the sound hole, and there was a hole cut out in the middle of it to house a cheap humbucker that I had come into owning. Oh, I had replaced a humbucker in my first electric guitar, so I had an extra humbucker laying around. And so I installed it in the sound hole there. Quickly realized that the humbucker didn't play with acoustic strings very well at all, so I converted it to be an electric guitar, essentially. And I wanted to have a volume and tone control, and I think there was an on-off switch, maybe. I think that's what the third hole was all about. I can't remember what the third hole was for, but I couldn't get my arm stuck down in here far enough to put it in a more traditional place. So I just did it up here where I could reach in and manage to install stuff. Oh man, and like, the soldering that I did back then was embarrassing. I had this super duper cheap soldering gun that I'd picked up from Radio Shack. And looking back, I realized that the wattage was way too low. It didn't have high enough wattage to get hot enough to properly melt the solder. So it was like spreading cake frosting. I would get it just gooey enough to stick stuff to other stuff and just spread it on. Years ago, I found a bag full of my old soldered pots and stuff, and that was embarrassing. But it all worked, is the thing. It all worked somehow, and it kept me going. It kept me interested. It kept me engaged with the instrument. A unique thing about having a humbucker in this guitar, having an electric guitar pickup in this guitar, is that I realized that it doesn't ground, that the whole circuit wasn't grounding. So I have, obviously another hole drilled right here that had the output jack, and I would run a wire from the output jack, like wrapped around it, and I would tuck it into my pants to ground the electric, so I could use this thing as a funky electric guitar. But with all that stuff aside, all the weird, dumb things that I did with this guitar over the years, this thing was a workhorse for me. I learned everything on it. I learned to love the guitar on it. It was constantly with me. When I started to drive, it lived in the back of my minivan, and it was played around so many beach bonfires and so many friends' houses, at so many parties, at so many church youth groups. This thing went everywhere with me. It was like a skin tag or a mole or something. Is it a good guitar? It's fine. I think it's fine. I think it was a good guitar to learn on. Clearly, it was instrumental in my journey, and it led me the direction that I've gone. But I don't think it's special in any way. I don't think this is a magical guitar. It wouldn't be for anyone else, but for me, it represents a lot. So anyways, let's get it playing again. It's got a broken high E. The strings on it are super crusty and old. The whole thing is dusty. I'm gonna clean it up. I'm just gonna clean it up and get it back into playing condition. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this whole thing just falls apart in some way while I take all the strings off so that I can give it a full polish and a cleanup and a restringing. Like something on this is gonna crack and fall apart, right? I used to be terrified to pull all the strings off a guitar because I read somewhere on the early guitar internet on Harmony Central, probably in 1997 or wherever, that if you cut all the strings at once, the whole guitar will just break into a million pieces. Oh, that was such another adventure, learning to play guitar at that time in the days of the early internet and just reading all the bonkers things that more experienced people had come to believe about guitar on the early internet. And it's been really interesting the past, 3 decades now, watching so much of the guitar culture change as information has become more readily and more consistently available. Like people are able to exchange information and opinions so quickly now and so effectively now that a lot of the very old, I know it seems like there's a lot of kind of like sacred cows and misinformation out there and kind of like oral tradition sorts of rumors and ideas about guitar that still persist to this day. But I'm telling you, like, back then it was wild. Like there were people on the internet saying things about guitar where if I read that now, I would laugh at them. Like, why? What are you even talking about? The ideas that people had about tone and guitar maintenance and what makes or doesn't make a good guitar are so interesting back then. There was all this discussion about sustain on the forums. Like, oh man, you've got to have guitars that weigh this much made out of this species of wood and blah, blah, blah. And if you don't do this or that, then you just won't have any sustain. And you need to have sustain. I don't care about sustain at all for the most part. That's what delay and reverb is for, right? Strings are off and it didn't blow into a million pieces. It's a miracle. These strings were probably brand new when I handed this off to my sister. I probably did this same exact thing a decade ago when I handed it to her. I'm going to start with just decrusting it with some paper towels and a little bit of guitar polish. There we go. I've got some Harmony guitar polish that came with my Silhouette. Also, I think before I handed this off to my sister, I removed all the stickers that were on it because it was definitely covered in stickers when I was playing this thing more consistently. Actually, I had a giant sticker on here that was from a, what's it called? A strike. I was on strike with the grocery union because I was working at Albertsons when I was in college. And right about when I graduated college, they went on strike, which was a disaster, by the way. The strike didn't work. And unfortunately, they lost a lot of ground, which was very sad. But it was right when I was about to quit anyways, because I was going into my graphic design career at that point. I'm still seeing like kind of grit lines. And I think it's actually, yeah, it's not grease on here. It is grooves that I wore into the fretboard. If only I had started on a nice Strat or even a Les Paul or something like that. Then I would have a guitar that I'm probably still interested in playing, and it would have all this cool relicking and wear. Why didn't my mom buy a cool electric guitar to learn guitar on in the 70s when she was in college? Come on, Mom. How come you were into Simon and Garfunkel? How come you couldn't be into Dick Dale? Yeah, I wore grooves into the fretboard. Pretty far down, too. It just goes and goes. I mean, it's not near the 12th fret. Right there. There's still grooves right there on the ninth fret. So yeah, I had this giant sticker on the guitar from the strike that said locked out. It was huge, like it was like that big, and I was playing the guitar while marching around the front of a grocery store doing our little demonstration there in front of the Albertsons. Oh, nut just popped off. If I had planned this a little better, I could have gotten a new nut for it. It needs it. It's all cracked up. There we go. It fits right back in there. And the bridge just fell off. That'll go right back in too. No sweat. I think I might lower it while I'm here. Just to see. There's a little bit of goo and goop right here because I used to have this sticker. Sticker's the wrong word. It was adhesive, but it was like a patch. It was a Smokey the Bear patch that I had right there. And I pulled it off and stored it somewhere because I didn't want it to get lost when I handed the guitar off to my sister. It was special to me. I don't know where that is. It would still be here today if I left it on the guitar. And now I have no idea where it is. But the leftover adhesive is just crumbling off with my thumb right now. That would have been a cool thing to keep on here. I'm going to hit the exposed wood with a fretboard conditioner now. Once again, from Harmony. They sent this maintenance kit with that silhouette when I got it. And this stuff lasts forever. I use so little of it that I'm probably going to have it in my box of tools until I die. Probably put way too much on there just now. Put some on the bridge as well. I'm pretty close to positive that this fretboard conditioner is the same thing as gunstock oil because it gives me flashbacks to hunting with my dad. Every time that I use it, it has the exact same odor and viscosity. Or maybe my dad was using fretboard oil on his rifles. This video would be a lot better if I had a vast collection of personal photos to back all this up. But I don't, because digital cameras were not a thing when I was young and learning to play guitar. And we were very stingy with our film photography. It was like, oh, we're going to document birthdays and getting together with grandparents and Christmas and maybe going on vacation. That's what you used cameras for. It wasn't an all-day document everything that happens in your life sort of technology. And I think that kind of inherent stinginess is somewhat reflected in my approach to guitar, my approach to this channel, as far as showing off the budget stuff of the world. Looking back, my family wasn't poor. We weren't rich either. Everyone thinks they're the definition of middle class, so that's not really even helpful. As a single income household, my dad was gainfully employed, but not in the way where we had luxuries. And we definitely, we watched our finances closely, and I was perceptive enough as a kid to know that money was a limited resource for my family. We didn't have the freedom to do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. We didn't have big toys. We didn't go on extravagant vacations. Small purchases were big treats to us at that time. And that mentality has kind of stuck with me. Even looking at there's so much stuff that comes in and out of my life. And that's all because of this channel, really. Before starting the channel, I was pretty dang conservative with my guitar collection. I had a pedal board that at any given point had like 8 pedals. I'd buy one, I'd sell another. It was a constantly rotating sort of thing. If I wanted to try something, I funded it by selling something else. And this was, I'm talking about when I was a gainfully employed professional. I just had this scarcity mentality that was very balanced. And this is all very unbalanced. The amount of gear coming into my life is not what I would recommend for anyone, really. It's just a byproduct of the work that I do now. And with that in mind, reflecting on that, I think that's one of the reasons why this guitar got so much use and so much abuse over the years, is because I had the mentality that this is my guitar. Why would I need another guitar? I already have a guitar. I was very, very curious about learning to play electric guitar. I wanted to make electric guitar sound so bad. And eventually I made that happen. I had a job. I was working in a grocery store, like I said. I found an electric guitar at a pawn shop, and I went and bought an amp, and the rest is history. But, I still was extremely frugal. I still had that first electric guitar up until about 15 years ago, I think. I had just mangled it and done my thing and swapped parts and definished it and refinished it over and over and over again. And I decided I was just done with it. I was ready to move on. I had 3 or 4 other electric guitars, and I was like, oh, this is enough. I don't need to have a 5th electric guitar. And so I sold it. I should have kept that thing. It was a Hamer, a Slammer by Hamer. And it wouldn't have been a big deal to keep it looking back. But this frugal mentality that I had towards the instrument, it still carries through despite all of this nonsense, despite the hundreds of pedals that I have now. But maybe that's why I have all this stuff now. Maybe it is a release from that mentality that I've lived under most of my life. Now I've given myself permission to indulge in way too much. But even then, it feels embarrassing sometimes. I'll say that. You know what I mean? All right, let's get some strings on here. I needed to ask Stringjoy to send me more electric strings recently, and I had just gotten this given back to me. So I was like, hey, send me the electric strings I need, and send me a pack of your most popular acoustic strings. I don't even know what gauge of acoustic strings I like anymore because I play acoustic so rarely. So they sent me their naturals, 11 to 52, phosphor, bronze, balanced, super light. 11 to 52 is super light? That's a heavy set on electric. Well, heavier anyways. People are gonna be like, oh, you only had 4 or 5 electric guitars? That's more than I have. I was playing in bands. I had multiple projects going on, and every single one of those guitars was some budget thing that I picked up at a pawn shop or on Craigslist or something like that over the years. I remember the first time I got a name brand guitar. I got a Fender Strat, a Mexican Strat. I bought it in a pawn shop for like 180 or something like that because it was missing parts. And I did all the repairs on it. Like I could have had better, nicer stuff at that point in my life. I was gainfully employed. And I was still just stingy. I was frugal. I was like, what's the point? This stuff works. I'm sitting here tuning this guitar with a phone. If I could go back in time and tell 14-year-old me, 13-year-old me, that someday I'd be tuning this guitar with a phone, they'd have no idea what I'm talking about. They'd think that I'm calling into some phone line that plays an open string sound. It goes like low E, low A, and then you tune by ear. I'd have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. Tuning a guitar with a telephone. Wild. Come a long way from tuning with a 9-volt powered quick tune. Those quick tunes were fun, by the way, because they were also microphones. I realized that if I plugged a cable into the output jack of it, I could sing into it. And not only could I sing into it, I could also like hold it against an acoustic guitar and amplify an acoustic guitar with my quick tune. I'm remembering all the times I snapped strings in that first attempt at tuning up and just being so devastated because I spent $5 on a pack of strings and I had to ride my bike all the way back to the local music shop to get another pack. It was so demoralizing when I worked so hard for those $5, either mowing lawns or working at the grocery store. Or babysitting. I did a lot of babysitting around that time. Babysitting my mom's friends' kids for, $15. I'm still nervous tuning this thing up. Another thing I just remembered, so many of my memories and experiences with this guitar centered around me being frustrated that I didn't have an electric guitar. I used to shove one of those old school pencil microphones that you'd get to, there was a dream that we'd be doing, video calls on our computers in like 1997. So everyone had these pencil mics so we could record our voices for the incoming, technological information revolution. And we never ever used those things other than messing around with the audio recorder. But I dropped those pencil mics into the guitar all the way in and would plug into my computer sound card and crank the gain in like, I forget what it was called, but like Windows Audio Recorder or something like that. You could crank the gain in the settings and I got this really crispy digital distortion that way. And then one day when I was pulling out the mic, it caught on the edge here and pulled off a big chunk and I was all worried about it because I hadn't done this stuff yet. I was all worried about it, so I was able to find one of the chunks and I super glued it back in there. This whole top, by the way, is plywood. It's a couple layers of thin pieces of wood held together with glue. But yeah, I just noticed that little chip in there and remembered that. It's just so funny that so many of the things I was trying to do with this guitar centered around trying to get electric guitar sounds out of it. Like the writing was on the wall. I wanted an electric guitar, and I think my parents were cautious about that for good reason, because the moment I got my own money and went out and made it happen, I was a menace to the family and the neighborhood. All right, we're tuned up now. I should drop a mic on this. Nothing too fancy going on here, just a dynamic podcast microphone to get a close-up recording of the guitar so you can hear what it actually sounds like versus the overhead mic. Might as well start off where the whole thing started anyways, smelling like Teen Spirit. Ah, it's really choking out on the 12th there, isn't it? It's not easy to play. It's a bit of a challenge. It might be because it's so well worn, or just it has these tiny little 1970s style frets that I've already like dug channels into with all my playing over the years. There it is though, there's my first guitar. Already sneaking out of tune. Oh man, what else should I play? Another part of my journey with this guitar is during college and a year or two later, I was doing a lot of busking. I would go down to like the beach areas, like the party areas, and busk around the bars late at night. I was doing it even past being 21. Like I came of age where I could go into the bars if I wanted to, and I had gone in them. And I was like, I have more fun out on the street playing a guitar, trying to make a few bucks. And I lived a lot of my weekends that way with this guitar, and I had another acoustic guitar at the time. Just going out on the street, playing sloppy little covers and segments of songs and taking requests and doing them incorrectly and just having fun. And this guitar was part of that journey. Just all its rattly nonsense was part of that flavor. It's really not a bad guitar though. It's of its time. It wants to play Peter, Paul, and Mary stuff. Like that's the reality of it. And I was pushing it into being, you know, like a 90s alternative sort of acoustic guitar. But it's sincere. It's honest. It wasn't trendy. It wasn't what other people were playing at the time. It's what I had, and I made it work. And I made it work for a long time, and I have a lot of memories with this guitar. I don't really feel any need to have it be part of my regular playing life anymore, though. And I don't actually know what to do with it now. I'm glad that I have it. I'm glad that it still exists. I have other guitars that I much prefer to play, other acoustic guitars that I much prefer to play, which is surprising because I don't have a lot of acoustic guitars. It's kind of bulky. Maybe I should take it outside and smash it and just be done with it. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go throw it off a bridge or something. Maybe you should just live in a place of honor somewhere in the living room in my house back on Earth. Leave it there. There's something banging around there. A pick. Of course, a pick. Not one of mine. It's a nylon pick. Gross. Let's see if I still got it, though. Aha, I do. The most important skill you can learn with an acoustic guitar, how to get a pick out. One of my friends must have dropped that in there. So anyways, I hope this was interesting to enough people out there that they made it to the end of the video. This is a very different sort of video for me. I'm typically showing off new stuff, doing a marketing thing really. But this is more of an introspective journey through my youth, down memory lane, exploring my very first guitar. I feel better having done it, documenting this thing. I hope you guys had a good time. I'm looking forward to reading everyone's stories down in the comment section about their first guitar. Do you still have it? Do you still have your first guitar? If you don't still have it, was that a good decision? Do you miss it? Or is it like a good riddance sort of scenario? I want to know. I didn't make any money making this video unless it gets 1 million views or something like that. This was really just about me documenting something significant to me for future generations, or for, you know, my grandchildren to watch someday and be like, why are my parents making you watch this? You got to get to know your grandpa. This is important. It's not important, kids. If your parents made you watch this, I'm sorry, future grandchildren. I have better videos. So anyways, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, dislike, leave me a rude, nasty comment. Support us on Patreon. Buy a shirt if you're naked, and stay grounded. Bye, everybody.